Yes, it is Tuesday, and we are live at 5 on the podcast as Saul sees it, where we talk about everything but politics, religion, and vaccination because people get pissy. This week, we actually have a reschedule from a couple weeks ago because I had horrible internet on my trip to Houston, and I have my good friend Barbara, who will be talking with us about how it is to be a teacher in high school and what the kids are facing during this pandemic. Barbara, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited again to share all the wisdom that you have from these things. So tell us a little bit about, where you teach or what you teach, because we don't want people to know where you teach, right? Then we might egg your car or something. So what do you teach? And then what are the struggles that you have faced as a teacher during this pandemic?
So I teach English, and I'm in East County. So I work for one of the Grossmont Union High School District schools. This is my 14th year of teaching. So thankfully not a veteran. I mean, thankfully that I am a veteran right now because this pandemic would be a lot different. I think the struggle has been always about the balance between doing what the kids need educationally and then also keeping in mind the individual struggles that they're dealing with at home. We don't see what's going on when they're in a pandemic, when they're staying at home. So trying to figure out a good balance of giving them the education that they need to be able to, make progress towards those educational career goals. And then also just staying in touch with them, just letting them know you care, you're there for them, helping them in whatever way you possibly can.
So I know that you and I have had, conversations, right? So as everyone knows, everyone that we bring on this podcast is someone that I'm really close with, either business-wise, friendship-wise, or both. And Barbara is, I've known her since high school. And I know you and I have had these conversations on the things that as teachers, right? So everyone is listening to this and you're saying, well, why aren't these teachers going back to school? Why aren't they teaching in class? There's a lot of things that are in the background that you guys have to be aware of, right? So as teachers, I know that you and I have had discussions about this where, different programs have had coming gone, changes, everything else. How is that adjustment with you having the experience that you have working for you compared to someone who's a newer teacher and is struggling with making those changes?
I think the biggest thing I would tell new teachers, and I'm currently working with a student teacher, and that's something I choose to do because I feel like if I can be a positive mentor to them, that's what I want our future teachers to be. So I think building those relationships is really important. And that's difficult in a little Zoom box screen. It can be a challenge to make those connections with kids. So just trying to ask them questions, about how they're feeling. I will typically ask them like a question of the day to kind of get them to, think about something that we're learning, but also just let them know, how are you feeling today? Like, what's going on with you that I should know about? Because I can't get them to learn anything that I care about, right? Because it's me choosing the curriculum. I can't get them to be interested in anything unless I make some of those personal connections. So, just trying to find opportunities. Tell me a day in the life of you. What does it look like when you're at home? What does it look like when you're learning? Do you have siblings that you're trying to also help in their Zoom sessions? Or do you have parents that are working and you're trying to come to Zoom when you can, but you can't other times because you're dealing with other issues? Or I have a lot of seniors that I teach, so a lot of seniors are having to work right now. They've had to take on extra jobs to help support their families. So, holding them accountable for their learning, but also understanding that they're trying to do what's best for their family right now too.
And that's a lot of pressure to put on a high school senior, right? Your family's struggling financially. You have to help at home, all these different things. I know, from having a high school senior and seeing it, high school senior, duh, she thinks she's a high school senior, from having a high school sophomore, the struggles that we see with her trying to just interact and do everything else. As a high school teacher, from the inside looking out, what can a parent do to be more supportive with a child during what's going on right now with this pandemic? I know we're getting closer to going, more than part-time to school, but what's something that we can do to make it, an easier transition for them?
I would say communication is always the best way. Communicate with your kid, ask them, and it's difficult. I have a tween, you have a sophomore, and teens don't want to open up to parents, right? And they don't want to talk about all the stuff that they're dealing with sometimes. But I think it's just keeping those lines of communication open, letting them know, how can I help you? I might not be great in math, but what can I do to help, right? Like, how can I support your learning? Do you need to see if there's some tutoring on campus? Because some campuses are open with after school tutoring. Can we work on getting you there so you can get the help that you need? So that communication piece is so important between a parent and a child, and also the parent and the teachers, even the school counselors. Sometimes we don't know if kids are now homeless, right?
Yeah.
So like they might be coming to school every day or the days that they can, and they're just doing the best they can, but we don't know if their situation has changed, and we don't know if now they don't have internet, right? And so now what do you do? How do you give that kid access to education that they're entitled to, and still, help them find a way to get through the day to day? So, that constant communication is always super important. I tell kids all the time, I don't know what you're going through, but you can just tell me, and I'm happy to help meet you where you are, because that's a lot for them. It's just to know that they have somebody else that cares about them and that can talk to them. So keeping that communication is so important.
So communication is the way to go. So we want to make sure you communicate with your kids. If you're listening out there, ask them questions. You don't know what they're going through. I know from my experience, and Barbara can relate, when we were in high school, the things that these kids are facing now are totally different, right? You might have had people talking shit about you in high school, but they weren't talking shit about you, when you got home. And now with social media, it's like nonstop. So talk to your kids and communicate with them about that. That's so important. Be a part of their lives. Now, and we've touched on the subject of, being a teacher, how you've adjusted, how these kids are kind of adjusting. You as a parent of 3 daughters, right? And teaching, I don't know how many students, and having your grown child husband, right? Sorry, Jeff, but we all don't know this. How difficult. So this is for everyone out there that's saying, oh, teachers have it easy. This is not the case in this situation here. So how have you adjusted, or what have you learned to, what have you done better to adjust to these different changes as a parent, teacher, wife, mother?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, like, this is my experience. How do I make it accessible for the kid at home who is trying to watch a screencast of me teach something where I feel like I'm being so clear, but I have some of my kids that are in distance learning only. They're not coming to school at all. And so as a parent, I'm like, okay, if I have to give them a Flipgrid, are they going to have a quiet place that they can go to record a Flipgrid of them speaking or reading their paragraphs? Sometimes it's hard. So just knowing that my own kids are also doing that has been like, they're like, Mom, you got to be quiet. I'm like, I'm trying to screencast. Stop it. Close the door.
You're like, I am working. Leave me alone.
Yeah, or my dog comes running through, and I'm like, oh, hi, dog. Hi. Everyone bring your pets to class today, kind of thing. So I think just being flexible, right? I mean, I think that's, if there's one thing that we've taken away from this year, it's being flexible with learning, with kids, with home lives, with everything. It's like, if you are here to learn, I am here to teach. So let's do this.
So really the whole thing is if you want to learn, you're going to learn, right? Pretty much is the way what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think the kids that have found success, and I do want to give a shout out to those seniors, because the graduating class of last year, many of them didn't get graduations, and that was really hard for them to go through those experiences. And then to see this year start, no one taught us in teaching credential school how to start a school year in a pandemic. No one taught us how to parent in a pandemic. Trust me, there were plenty of times where I was like, is it 3:00 yet? Because Mama's tired. I need to check
Mama needs
out.
to open up her bottle. She needs her bottle of wine.
Mama's like, my consumption went up a little bit,
That's when Saul comes to the rescue and just delivers that wine. He's like, here you go. Try this out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think just as a teacher, we're just always aware of what kids might be going through. And so how can I tailor my assignments that it's not, busy work? Kids get really annoyed with busy work. And I don't want them to have that experience. I want them to know that everything that I'm doing is very intentional and thoughtful in the skills that they need to be able to be successful later on, whether that's, a sophomore going into a junior class or a senior going out into the real world. All of those things, I've scaled back a lot and only focused on what really matters during this time. So shout out to all those seniors that have been persevering and getting some serious grit to get through this basic pandemic learning most of their senior year.
Yeah, it was pretty much been the whole senior year. So we, everyone, if you guys have a question, we are live, so you can ask the questions. We will answer as they come in. So please interact with us. It's always fun. One thing that I have a question for you, right? So high school is supposed to prepare us for the next phase of our life, which is becoming adults, right? Going to a 4-year university or college or everything else, or a trade school, right? So we were trying to have this before some of these kids got their acceptance letters to their universities. How is the high school trying to prepare these kids to actually make better financial decisions when it comes to their higher education?
We, as at least my school site, and I know some of the other schools in our district have adopted, obviously, the Common Core curriculum, which is all about college and career readiness. But we have a course that's approved by the CSU system, and it is English rhetoric based, which is what they need when they get to college.
Yeah.
But we have a whole unit that focuses on career and college exploration. So getting kids the experience of, what is it like if you want to pursue this job? What are your job opportunities look like, right? If I have this great dream, I want to be a psychologist, fabulous. What does that look like for you? What kind of income can you make from that? And what kind of cost of living do you have to deal with? Because you want to stay in beautiful, sunny San Diego, unless you're you and you take off. But
I'm the smart one. I'm the smart one.
Right. But just getting them to constantly think about these are lifelong choices. They don't have to be permanent. I think sometimes we get caught up in the idea of what do I want to be when I grow up? Right. And that ideal we hang on to for so long, but it changes throughout our life. And so what we think of, when I'm 10 is not the job or career that I might want to pursue when I'm 18. So kind of giving them an opportunity to explore all of those things, what college is appropriate for you to attend. When my husband was going to pharmacy, he was able to graduate pharmacy school with, like $40,000 in student debt, which seems like crazy amount. But if you chose a school like University of Pacific up in Stockton, you're looking at $100,000 in debt. So kind of just exploring, like, what does it mean for me to move out of state, to reestablish myself, to find career options, to best prepare them for that next step. And I think our counselors do a fabulous job of really connecting with kids each year and coming up with some career. And we used to have a program called Career Cruising where we would kids would answer questions each year. So their 9th grade year, they would start with some kind of questions about, their lifestyle choices. I can't eat caviar every day, and I don't even like caviar, but, I can't have Hollywood caviar dreams if I've got a job that's not going to support that kind of lifestyle or budget, right?
You mean you can't live the lifestyle of the rich and famous? Like we all grew up watching Robert, what was it? Robert Leach or Robert Litch,
yes.
Whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
Today on the lifestyles of the rich and famous, teacher eats caviar every day for breakfast.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
It doesn't. So kind of just, I always have honest conversations with kids, especially the seniors. I'm like, you're going to go off and you may get a million different credit card offers thrown in your mailbox trying to get you to do that. What does that mean? You're spending $3.50 on your Starbucks right now, but if you don't pay that bill off, that bill is going to be worth twice. Now you just bought a $7 Starbucks, let's talk about why that's not a good choice. So kind of just, kind of capturing some of those moments and opportunities to look at the curriculum that you have and having those honest and real conversations with them, I think is really important. So I enjoy that unit because it gives them a lot of freedom to explore what they write a resume. They'll also write a letter of introduction. They'll answer all of their college prompts. If they're going college bound, they have an opportunity to go through and answer all those college prompts and respond to that. So they're prepared for that. And it's always been a really great experience for them. I always get a lot of positive feedback from, thank you for making me do this.
And that's a good thing. Cause I know that when I was, and I remember having that, it was like we were told, and I've had this discussion with other people. We were programmed in our head that you want to go to Harvard, you want to go to Yale, you want to go to UCLA, you want to go to these crazy schools, right? So look at Jeff. Jeff is making an appearance. He's got off work. So
yeah.
So you want to go to these 4-year universities, right? But the whole thing is how much is this education going to cost you, and is your job going to be sufficient to pay that off at a certain point, right? Because now we see it in politics, which we're not really talking about politics. We're just talking about people where people are just asking for student loan forgiveness. I'm like, is it the taxpayer's job to pay off your student loans because you decided to go to UC Berkeley, and then all of a sudden now you're like, I don't know, whatever job they decide to fall back on because they want to do something. Now they're doing something that's not going to be able to afford that tuition that they paid for. And it's, I don't feel that it's my job to pay for that. Right. So at least you guys are actually doing something about that, because it's I honestly personally think that the people that get affected the most with that are the first generation minorities here in the United States, because they want a better education system, a better education for
the
their
American
kids.
Dream.
Yeah, the American dream. But the American dream is not debt from students, student loans. And that's what these first generation Latinos or Middle Eastern people, wherever they're from, don't see that. So that's just crazy to me. It's just insane. So now on these classes, are these classes that they're taking, is that offered at every school district or every school, or is it just for your school?
It's a course curriculum that they can adopt. So it's, in my understanding, most of the Grossmont Union High School District has adopted some portion of the course at different grade levels. So it's to build their skills over the years. So we implement some of the smaller units, in 9th and 10th grade, and then 11th and 12th, we build up to more rhetoric-based to courses. Not to say that they don't read books or, learn poetry or do all those other things, because we certainly bring all of that in. But it's something that I think each school site can determine if they want to adopt as like a full year plan.
Okay.
So
as a parent, looking from the outside looking in, or however you want to look at it, because if you can look at it any way, what can a parent do to try to have this conversation with their kids? I know personally, I have this conversation with both my children. What do you want to do? What, at different ages, I've had this conversation, right? Because as a 5-year-old, and a 15-year-old, their dreams of what they want to do have changed dramatically, right? And so I kind of added more things to these conversations, like, what do you want to do? What schooling do you have to go to? Do you have to, how much is your annual income that you're going to be making on this? That type of stuff. Is that something that you would recommend parents to do? Or is there other things that we can do as parents to try to prepare our kids that the school system is not doing, right? Because the school system can only do so much. And the rest of it, we kind of have to do as parents to get our child to the next phase of their life.
Yeah, I think those conversations are important. I have a 12-year-old. We've had conversations for the longest time. She's been super interested in sharks and wanting to explore marine biology. And I'm like, well, if you really want to be passionate about marine biology, look at your options. You have to be on a coast. You have to be on a school where there is an ocean nearby.
Right.
So look at that. And is it going to be affordable for you to do that in the atmosphere that you're in? If you're going to UC San Diego, or if you're going to have to go to Florida and study sharks down in Florida. But she's also really passionate about writing and drawing. And so, okay, so you don't have to do that. Like, when you're getting closer, then explore what those opportunities look like for you. What kind of programs do each of the college campuses offer? I've had plenty of conversations. I just had one with a senior the other day. I said, so what are you going to do? June's around the corner. You're graduating. What's your plan? And she's like, well, I really want to do physical therapy. I'm like, cool. Where are you going to study? Grossmont and Cuyamaca and the community college system, they have the first year or two 100% paid for.
Yeah.
Right. So go take advantage of that. Not every kid is UC or CSU bound. So go take some classes and explore some things. One of the texts that we use in that college career unit is talks about Bill Gates and how he ended up taking a calligraphy class in college, because he was just interested in exploring things, which, by the way, he never graduated college. Right. Yeah. Super successful,
okay,
right?
He can avoid that.
Yeah, but he took a calligraphy college that ended up becoming part of the typography that he used, when he was creating.
Yeah, Microsoft.
So it's like, why not explore those things and have those, conversations with your kids about what are you interested in? One of the things my dad told me that's always stuck with me is that, if you get up and you're passionate about what you're doing every single day, it will feel like you're not really working a day in your life, and I'm always like, man, there's some truth to that. That's why I love teaching so much, because I get so many of those great opportunities and moments to really engage with kids that I can be passionate about this, even in a pandemic. I can still be passionate about my job, even though it's hard sometimes, right? But those
Yeah, no,
conversations are super important.
I have that. I have that same conversation with all my people that I talk with. I said I don't go to work. I go to fun because I love what I do. I do it every single day. The passion does not die. It just I love it. It's one of those crazy things that I'm like, why? Sometimes people ask me like, did you study to do this? I'm like, yes, I studied to do my job. Like that's one of those things, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I did find that passion that I enjoy. For you as an educator, you know, and this is one thing, as you touched a good point, right? That here in San Diego, they can get community college for free, right? Their tuition for free. I as a parent think of it as a good opportunity for them to actually go out and explore what they actually want to do in the real world. Because I don't think that everyone's meant to go to a four-year university. I don't think everyone's meant to be in the professional field. I think that, you know, you can be an electrician, you can be a plumber, you can be this. And you want to know what? I tell this to everyone. Those are the people that were essential during this pandemic. They kept on
Mhm.
working. It's like, there you go. No issues happened there. So for you as a teacher, do you talk to kids about that and say, hey, you know what, maybe a four-year university, if you're kind of like, I'm not sure, four universities and that might not be even though they get accepted, maybe you should go this way, or you kind of just stay away and say, hey, let them make that decision themselves.
You know, we talk a lot about, what kind of conversation have you had with your parents about this? If you had to talk to your friends about your next steps or college, what would you tell them? Are you comfortable with your plan? And by the way, just because it's your plan now doesn't mean it has to be your plan 2 years from now. Maybe you go down that path and you're like, yeah, this isn't for me. Is that
Yeah.
really how you want to spend the rest of your life? Just in misery, doing that because that's what you decided when you were 17. I mean, we can all be super honest and say we would not make the decisions at 17 that we make when we're in our 30s or 40, right? Like we just don't do that. So, give yourself a chance to explore things, and look at what is available to you. And absolutely, we need all kinds of individuals that can keep our communities and economy going, right? So,
Yeah.
welding, we need welders. As far as I know, there's no robotic technology thing going on out there that can just make welding happen.
No,
Like
no.
there's specific trades that need that kind of skill, and they're highly sought after, and they make great incomes.
They're very well compensated. I mean, I know for electricians, you know, and everything else, you know, you go through the whole schooling. While you're going through the schooling, they're paying for your schooling, and you're getting paid to be an apprentice. When you come out, you get full benefits, pension, all these crazy things that most other companies have gotten away from. Most companies have even gotten away from a 401k because it's not financially feasible for small companies to offer those to their employees. But these jobs, the plumbers, the construction workers, the laborers, you know, the laborers that we look at, electricians, plumbers, construction workers, police officers, they have pensions, they have the retirement accounts. Why? Because it is a good career to follow. So, you know, like we said earlier, not every person or child is meant to go to community college or go to a four-year university. But as long as you love what you do, I think that's what matters at the end of the day, because you don't want to go to work, you want to go to fun. So with that said, I'm going to transition for you, right? I know, and I'm probably going to put you on the spot on this one. You've been a teacher. Here you
Yeah,
go,
right?
right? Like, oh crap, Saul was going to do one of his ad libs here. So, I mean, you're a teacher. You've been teaching for 14 years. You know, English teacher. I'm not sure. I could never teach English, or I don't have the patience to teach, you know, people. I probably lose my shit all the time and start cursing or drink heavily, which doesn't really change on that part, right? But what is your next step for you? I know that we've had the discussion. Is that something that you want to continue teaching throughout your career, or is there another steps that you feel that you can make a better use of your skills or change things? What do you want to do next?
I do have my master's degree, and I also have my administrative credentials. So, possibly in the future, exploring some of those opportunities to take on leadership. I've done a lot of that through my own campus, different leadership, roles on campus. I'm the English language learner coordinator. So all of our students who come, whose primary language is something other than English, I work to support those kids in their learning in all classes, and giving them the educational experience that they need and deserve while they're learning here in our schools. So I think, long term, maybe I'll be
Hey,
a vice principal someday. And,
there you heard it first on as Saul sees it. Ruggles. When you see those Ruggles signs, in Santee Lakeside area, make sure you
Oh,
vote. All right, make sure you
yeah.
vote here.
Who knows?
It's a
Who
this is an
knows?
exclusive. This is an exclusive here.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things I just remind myself of is there's always room for improvement, and we're always, looking at how we can be better. So whether that's me, looking at my own practice in teaching and saying, how can I be a better teacher? Right. I mean, I consistently will ask kids, how's this learning going for you? I'm not the learner, I'm the teacher, but I need to know what your experience is like. Are you understanding this? Does it make sense to you? Is there another way I can explain this? So I think in terms of schools as a whole, we always have room for improvement. One thing that I will say that's kind of a little bit terrifying is that we're given so much right now in terms of federal dollars and funding to really kind of support and target some of the the kids that have really slipped through the cracks when they're at home learning. But this is a short-term funding that's going to be a long-term problem.
Yeah.
We're going to be facing educational gaps for 5-10 years from now. So it's going to be really important to look at whatever we can do to support teachers and educators and schools in our community to bridge some of these gaps is going to be essential to get kids back to where they need to be.
And then the one thing that we don't see that, I'm not sure if your mom worked when you were younger, but my mom did not, right? So my dad we were fortunate enough to have my father work and do all these things to survive, especially in San Diego. You require dual incomes. Like it's
Mhm.
really hard. So by the time both of them get home, they make dinner, that child has either been in some sort of daycare situation or being watched over by a sibling that maybe is not watching over that sibling and helping them with these things. So we're definitely, as you look at where the United States falls in our educational, ranking in the world, I see us dropping even more because of the simple fact that it's just so expensive to live in certain areas of this country. San Diego, I'm gonna use San Diego as an example, that requires two people to work. When they get home, they just don't have the time or the patience, right, to do it. And so at that point, it makes it very unfair for you as a teacher to actually try to make a better impact, because now at this point you're being more of a mother than an actual teacher and a mentor. That's the way I look at it. That's just from what I mean, looking from the outside in.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think there are times where I've had to mother kids, but those are the kids that need a little bit because they might not get that kind of experience at home. But just that kind of ability to let them know, hey, I care. I care about your success. I care about your education. I care about your future. Like we can do this together. Let's come up with a plan. Let's come, I think it's important because we don't have people that are at home. This isn't the 1950s, right? We're not having
correct.
people at home teaching our kids. And some parents were able to homeschool their kids and were able to help their kids navigate through this during a pandemic. And some were not. It was just like, do your best, like
Yeah,
figure it out. I don't know Google Classroom or I don't know this thing and good luck.
that
So
was definitely me.
yeah.
This new core math is just ridiculous to me. 2 + 2 is 4, but they're like, no, it's not 4, it's 6, because you got to figure out this. I'm like, why are you making up new math ways? No other country does
Yeah.
this other than the United States. Let's figure out a new way to screw up math. I don't
Yeah.
get that
Well, I
stuff.
don't know anything about the math piece because I only
Yeah,
do
yeah, I
words.
know. She's like,
That's my
she's.
bubble is the words. But
I teach English. I don't deal with that
yeah,
other stuff.
no. Although I do love data, so there's a little bit of irony there because I do love to look at data and I consistently checking to see where kids are. Okay, where are kids struggling? What do they need support with? If I can give an assessment that gives me some feedback, some data, I can target that. That's not something a parent can do at home, but just giving that kind of information from the kid helps me. So, we're going to be dealing with this for a really long time. Just be a consistent force in your kid's life.
Well, and as you said, we're gonna be dealing. This pandemic is not something that's gonna go away, right? We're gonna be dealing with this for many, many years, and the ramifications of this homeschooling, the Zoom teaching, it'll be felt for a couple of years, if not, maybe a decade or so. So it's interesting. Any last thoughts of what parents should be doing to help their kids with their schooling from home, planning for their future? Anything as a teacher that you would love to share with all the listeners out there that that have kids in high school, or even trying to get them prepared for high school? Any last thoughts from Miss Barbra Ruggles today? Future something admin at some sort of district. Boom.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel, one of the things that the pandemic did teach us is that we need to be clear in our communication. And so you may have received a million different emails, right? And I know that it's tempting to just like check out and be like, I don't want one more email from the school or from this, but it's really kind of our way to be clear and transparent and communicate all of those things that we don't get to. That's a huge piece that parents kind of check out a little bit at the secondary level, because teenagers are hard and it's a difficult thing. And so we don't see the amount of parent involvement. We don't have huge PTSAs where parents are coming on campus and they're doing some of those things, even though we have a wonderful PTSA organization. It's so just kind of doing what you can each and every day to check in on your teen, whether it's their mental health, whether it's their physical health, their emotional well-being, obviously academics. Just be there, be consistent, be clear in communicating with them. Sometimes it takes us as parents, it forces us to just stop and listen, right? We're really good at giving advice. We're really good at how to live their lives because we've had those life experiences, but they haven't. Just stop and listen and say, okay, yeah, I'm interested. Tell me more about that. Because I find myself, I learn more from them sometimes when I do that than if I just tell them how I think it should be, right? Or how I perceive it to be, because their experiences are so different than growing up now than we were. So
I tell my mom all the time, tells me that, I too hard on my daughter or too hard on my son. And I'm like, Mom, you don't understand what it is to grow up as a child this day and age, and actually be growing, being a parent, one thing, and then being the child, it's a whole nother thing. And so, it's a whole nother animal. And so I'm like, you stay over there in the grandparent zone. You're fine over there. Let me handle my stuff. And it's a funny story. I do tell my mom this all the time. It's like, no one ever accused a grandparent of a child being spoiled, rotten, or doing something stupid. It's always the parents, right? So you mind your business over there, and I'll deal with it over here. I call Mom Lady, and I'm like, Lady, I got this. Don't worry. She just shakes her head, I'm like, all right, whatever. So, but it is important to be there. So once again, Barbra, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're busy with your 3 kids and Jeff and your the other 100 kids that you teach and everything else you do for the schools. So if you're driving around a couple years to see the Ruggles for whatever, make sure you vote for that. You heard it first here on
No politics. I'm not into
politics. No politics. It's just better education for the kids. That's all it's about.
But you may see me trying to change schools or improve them for the better, for sure.
And that's always what we're trying to do, right? I mean, me, I'm very involved in my kids' schools, and so the donations we do from the foundation, everything else, it's always important. I'm not trying to get involved in the politics side of it. I'm just trying to make it better for my kid, and if it makes it better for my kid and it helps 30 other kids in a classroom or a whole school, then by all means, let's do it, right? So, like I said, if you guys see those signs out there, Ruggles for whatever, make sure you vote for that. And
well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. So next week we'll actually be on live at 5 again. Once again, as Saul sees it. Once again, we're not talking about politics. We're not talking about any vaccinations, anything like that. We just keep it 100 all the time, except for those 3 things, because people get all offensive. So thank you so much for everyone's listen. Thank you, Barbra. And we'll see you guys next week live at 5.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.